So it's as if they are saying when Theia crashed into the earth, impacted the earth, that it tilted the earth's poles 66.6 degrees. And that after it tilted the poles 66.6 degrees, that the remnants of Theia, everything connected to Theia that remained after that impact, again, those remnants were trapped in the middle of the Earth's mantle, 666 kilometers down into the Earth in the mantle transition zone, which, based off of some of this scientific research and some of these scientific findings, seems like it may be able to be reached from the poles, from the North and the South poles, that there may be access down into this region directly at both the North and the South poles, that we may be able to get down to that mantle transition zone from the North and the South poles, because you got some of those scientific findings that seem to indicate that we have sediment deformation or massive openings in the rock at the North and the South pole. Deformation in those rocks going down through the crust and all the way down through the upper mantle, leading directly down to this part of the earth, to the middle of the mantle, to the mantle transition zone, to those large low shear velocity provinces, to those pieces of Theia, which again, when they made contact with the earth, tilted the northern and southern latitudes of the earth, the Arctic and the Antarctic, 66.6 degrees. So we have this 66.6 degree tilt at the poles, right where we may also have access to these provinces, these large low shear velocity provinces sitting in the mantle that may be able to be reached from the poles. Again, these ancient extraterrestrial remnants of Theia that are dropping down 666 kilometers deep down into the earth. And remember, in Greek mythology, Theia is one of the titans, one of the gods locked away in that subterranean prison, Tartarus, imprisoned deep down within the earth after that massive war where the titans are defeated and sent down to Tartarus. Theia is supposed to be locked away deep down in the earth with the rest of these ancient gods, with the rest of the titans, banished to the deepest part of the underworld. And within the mythology, Theia is the daughter of Gaia and Uranus. Uranus representing the heavens or the universe, and Gaia representing the earth. So if you get it, it's basically saying that Theia is an offspring of the universe that was born within the earth, that was born within Gaia, her mother. So a titan or a god whose original origins starts within the earth. So Theia is tied to the universe, tied to the heavens, tied to outer space, but her original place of origin originates in the earth. And then also in the mythology, Theia is the wife of the titan Hyperion, and her and Hyperion join together and birth the sun and the moon. Sol and Luna come from the titans Theia and Hyperion. And that name Hyperion actually means he who watches from above, or watcher from above, because Hyperion is supposed to represent the light of heaven, the light of the cosmos, basically all the celestial objects lighting up the universe, all the bright objects that we see above us. Hyperion is supposed to represent. So again, when you say that name, Hyperion, you're really saying he who watches from above, or watcher from above. And just above us within our solar system, we can find Hyperion. Hyperion is actually a moon of Saturn. It's a very small, abnormally shaped moon of Saturn. They say it's Saturn's biggest non-spherical shaped moon. The biggest of the moons that doesn't have that perfectly round regular shape to it because it's extremely misshapen. It almost has like an oval shape to it. And it's not perfectly rounded out anywhere. It's kind of flat. It's not perfectly rounded out. But again, it is a very small moon. It's only about 255 miles long. So the longest part of this thing on its longest side is only 255 miles, which is about as big as the state of Pennsylvania. So this thing is extremely small. Like if you compared it to our moon, which is 2,100 miles wide. Again, the longest part of this thing is only 255 miles wide, about the size of one of the states in America. And again, it's got this really abnormal shape that you normally don't see when you're dealing with the moon. And it's just got this very odd look to it. A lot of people describe it as looking like a sponge because it's got a bunch of cavities in it, a bunch of pores. It's extremely cavernous. It's extremely porous. There's almost not one area on this thing where you will not find pores, where you not find cavities. And normally those type of indentations indicate some type of impact, that this thing was maybe struck a massive amount of times, that each one of those cavities or pores could be from an individual impact. And when you look at it, it almost looks like it's incomplete, like it's not a full object, like it's not a complete object, almost like a broken off piece of something, like a piece of an object that broke off and is now floating out there by itself, which has caused a lot of theories that Hyperion is actually the remnant of a much larger moon, that this is actually just a small piece of a much more massive moon that was destroyed by a major impact, and that what we see now is the last piece of this moon that completely shattered from this impact. That whenever this impact occurred, that it completely decimated almost this entire moon, and that what we see now is all that is left after that impact, because it also has this really strange rotation to it where it basically tumbles when it rotates. So instead of spinning around in like a 360 motion, this thing tumbles and flips when it rotates. Again, almost like it was hit by something erratically, which caused it to start tumbling and flipping, and it just never stopped flipping over on itself. And we got caught in that tumbling rotation after that potential impact. And of course, because of all these cavities and pores and the way it's shaped, this thing is completely uninhabitable. But it does have a very thin, almost undetectable atmosphere on it. I mean, it almost might as well not be there, but it shows that there is a hint of an atmosphere there that maybe at one point was expanded a lot more. And on this thing, there also is water. Actually, over 40% of this thing is covered in water. And we already know where you have water, you have the potential for life. But because of the lack of atmosphere, all these pores, all these cavities within it, all of the water on it is in the form of ice. But again, this water ice covers over 40% of this thing. So all of this water ice suggests that, Hyperion may have been habitable at one point in time. And one of the really odd things about this moon is that it has a very strong electrostatic charge on its surface. The charge on the surface of this thing is so strong that a satellite passing by it was hit by a 200-volt electrical shock from Hyperion. So again, the static electrical charge on this thing is intense. And it is the only other object in our solar system with a consistent static electrically charged surface throughout the entire object, other than our own moon and the planet Mars. And remember, our own moon also has a bunch of craters and cavities in it, as if it was struck a massive amount of times. Now, granted, all of this static electricity could be from it being exposed to, ultraviolet light, cosmic rays, and other charged particles that it picked up from interstellar space. But you can't help but question, could this static electrical charge on the surface of Hyperion be the residual The residue, what is left over from whatever struck Hyperion when it was a larger moon and destroyed it, leaving it as what it is today. You got a question. Could Hyperion have been a moon that had some type of life on it before it was destroyed by something that maybe left this static electrical mark on it? And remember, Hyperion is supposed to be connected to Theia in the mythology. Theia and Hyperion are supposed to have a strong connection. And then within the science, Hyperion is a moon of Saturn. And Theia was supposed to have come from somewhere within the solar system and attached itself to the Earth. The planet Theia was supposed to have formed within our solar system, but we don't know exactly where. Officially it's thought that it collided with the Earth coming from somewhere within our solar system, but we do not know where this thing came from. So you got a question. Could Theia have come from Saturn? Because remember, Hyperion is potentially just a piece of a much larger moon that was destroyed by a massive impact. So the question is, could Theia have come to the Earth and created our moon after this Hyperion moon was destroyed in this mysterious impact? Because you got the potential of Hyperion being destroyed, Theia crashing into the Earth, and pieces of Theia being trapped inside the Earth. And then you got the mythology telling us about a war where the Titans, the ancient gods, are defeated and trapped deep inside the Earth. It all just seems to connect. And all of it seems to point back to Saturn. And in the mythology, Theia and Saturn are siblings. They're brother and sister, with them both being Titans, both being gods. So again, in the mythology, Theia is directly connected to Saturn. And of course, being siblings, both Theia and Saturn come from Uranus, or come from the heavens, from, the universe, outer space. And remember, Saturn castrates his father, Uranus, which cuts Uranus off from his connection to his wife, Gaia. And Hyperion is actually one of the Titans who holds Uranus down while his brother Saturn castrates him. Hyperion is actually there holding Uranus down as Saturn castrates and breaks Uranus's connection to Gaia. And again, Uranus is the heavens, the universe, outer space, and Gaia is the Earth. So basically, when Saturn castrates Uranus and cuts off his connection to Gaia, it's basically like saying that Saturn cut off the Earth's connection to outer space, to the universe, to the rest of the universe. That Saturn has cut off the Earth's connection to the heavens. And that somehow Theia has played a role in all of this, which ultimately ended with remnants of Theia, remnants of this divine one, this godlike entity being trapped deep inside the Earth, 666 kilometers down in the mantle. And when Theia impacted the Earth, remember, most likely brought carbon with it. And we know 98.9% of the carbon on Earth is carbon-12. 6 protons, 6 neutrons, 6 electrons. But we've also got remnants of Theia sitting inside the moon, which is keeping the Earth at this 66.6 degree tilt from north to south. So it seems like we got a lot of esoteric things going on here. We've seen that number 666 a lot, like we're being very subtly clued into something, specifically in relation to what is going on inside the Earth. And what's interesting is when you look at the story in 1 Samuel 28, in the first 14 verses, you got Saul, who is the king of Israel. And King Saul is in the middle of this massive war with the Philistines. And when Saul sees the Philistine army, he is like, there is no way we are going to be able to defeat this army. So he tries to go to the Lord for answers, and the Lord does not answer him. He's basically lost his connection to the Lord. And normally in situations like this, he would go to Samuel, with Samuel being his top military advisor. But at this point, Samuel has passed away. So he no longer has Samuel to look to, for that guidance of how him and his troops can win this war. So Saul decides to go to a medium to seek answers. And a medium is basically somebody that can communicate with the spirit world or channel entities that exist somewhere where they can't be reached by us physically. So he wants to go through this medium to get in contact with Samuel to get answers about this war that he is in the middle of trying to command. And Saul had actually created a law where he had placed a ban on all mediums, all spiriters, all people with familiar spirits. Basically, anybody dabbling in what would be considered witchcraft is banned. So he actually goes to meet this medium in the middle of the night in secret while wearing a disguise. Because again, he's the king, and without that disguise, anybody would recognize him. So he goes to meet this medium, and there's a moment where she freaks out because she realizes that it's Saul, and she's like, wait a minute, you banned all mediums, all wizards, all familiar spirits, everybody practicing witchcraft from the land. And he assures her that everything is going to be all right. And he says, bring me up Samuel. So the medium starts to conjure Samuel up, and she all of a sudden seems terrified. And Saul asks her, what do you see? And she says, I saw gods ascending out of the earth. And Saul is basically like, wait a minute, what did they look like? And she says, an old man cometh up, and he is covered with a mantle. And Saul realizes this is Samuel, and he falls face first to the ground and bows down to him. So this medium tries to contact Samuel, and she sees gods ascending out of the earth. So gods, plural, multiple beings coming up from out of the earth. So basically from inside the earth. And she sees an old man covered with a mantle. So an old man, basically an ancient being covered with a mantle.